I think the family courts are struggling. It might feel difficult to revert to COVID, but we are still recovering from the slowdown that took us to something like 55,000 children in the system. We're sitting at 44,000 now, and we've got no less demand than we had before COVID. In fact, it's on the rise. So I think the fact that we have got improved performance on delay is something to be positive about. But I think there are a number of issues that we'll probably talk about today that we need to think about, including the experiences of children and families in the family justice system, but also how we move to the intended reforms.
So just to add to that, there have been recent improvements in terms of delays, but the system's under immense pressure. I would say, though, that performance in the family justice system is almost entirely measured in relation to timeliness. And that is a problem in itself, in that we don't have a way of measuring whether the system is effective in terms of improving children's lives or really understanding the experiences of parents and children.
I would have said something similar. I can add that, and I'm sure we'll go on to talk about it, but I published a research report a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure I'll pick out many things I want to tell you, but in relation to this, one of the startling statistics in it was that 30% of the volume of the cases we were able to look at were returns to court. So it gives you some indication of how, if matters are not resolved or matters are ongoing and more protracted, you get a sense of what is impacting the court in terms of pressure and volume. And the other thing I'm sure we will go on to talk about are the reforms, which we refer to, you're probably aware of them already, pathfinder courts, which do create more pressure on the system at the start, but I think pay off in dividends. But we should be cautious before we prioritize them as an efficiency model. They're meant to be, as Lisa said, improving the way the court understands and addresses domestic abuse. If a byproduct of that is that they are more efficient, they do have that impact, that's wonderful. But the primary measure we should be looking at is the quality of the work in those courts.
Just sticking on timing for the moment, a question primarily to Jackie, though please feel free, anyone else to answer it. Following the 2014 review over a decade ago now, a 26-week time limit was introduced for public law cases, which has never been met. The mean disposal time in the first quarter of this year was 39.6 weeks. Why is that target, 26-week target, so difficult to meet?
Well, a number of reasons. So first, just to say, I think we're about 35% of cases in public law at the minute are concluding at 26 weeks, which is a good way ahead. Look, in public law proceedings, there are many reasons for delay, notwithstanding the fact that social workers are difficult people to find and to keep. And if a social worker changes in the middle of a case, it creates delay. People try and take a lot of care around the decision to remove a child from their parents, so experts are instructed. They're another reason for delay. And in many of those cases, late in the day, family members are identified to care for those children, and the proceedings come to a slow while those assessments happen. Everybody does try to find those family members right at the start when proceedings are issued. That often doesn't happen. There are many intentions in the system to try and change that, including the DfE reforms that are on the table now in the House of Lords around identifying kinship carers much earlier, in fact at the point of issue. But I think we're a bit of a way from that in terms of achieving that now. But on top of the capacity in the system, there are some understandable reasons why people try to get this right, and that does involve delay.
I would just add that, as Jackie says, there are many different reasons which may contribute to delay. She mentioned some. There is also, obviously, capacity of the court, availability of expert witnesses, etc. What we struggle with is having a really strong governance structure to be able to solve those problems at a local level, because they're not things that can be solved by pulling levers nationally on their own. They also need very strong local governance, and that is lacking in the family justice system at the moment.